The other day, I made a video specifically talking about tank destroyers and how they struggle to win in Tier 10, and it seems like the video got a bit of attention because Happy wanted to make a video replying to what I said, his response to it. Now, I want to point out, before this video dives into anything, that I have no problems with Happy. He's a pretty nice guy to talk to, and we're actually quite friendly. But the way he replied to my video, we're gonna talk about that in today's video. So dive in, get your seatbelts buckled, let's get into it. What I want to start off today's video on is down to the fact that when I make any video on the channel, I am checking and double checking my sources of information. When I talked about tank destroyers not being able to win, that was not an opinion I made. It was factual evidence I found sourcing blitzanalysisgraphs.com from 65%ers and how they perform in tank destroyers to the average players and how they perform in tank destroyers from update 8.9. Not only that, but then I went over to Blitz stars and I looked at how individual top players on each server do compared to other classes in tank destroyers, mediums, heavies, everything. When I make a video, I always check my sources, my information to make sure it is correct. And this is why a lot of people will notice I get very heated in the comment section and arguments with other people because they simply deny the facts. So in today's video, I'm going to be showing graphs of factual evidence on how tanks are doing from update 8.9. And you can voice your opinions off of those. Now, if you still disagree, you are simply saying, I disagree with factual evidence. It is like scientists saying global warming is real, and you are saying the Earth is flat. It's math time! In front of you is statistics provided by blitzanalysis.com. I would highly suggest to check this website out yourself. I sent it to Happy in Discord DMs actually before he made his video because I saw his community post and he still refused to check the website out. So I'm going to show it here on my channel. Bottom 20 tanks by average win rate in Tier 10 as of update 8.9. We can see vehicle class light tank, medium tank, heavy tank, and tank destroyer. And tank destroyer is green. And there's a lot of green in this graph. In fact, 8 vehicles are tank destroyers listed out of the bottom 20. Almost half of this entire list is tank destroyers. The 183 is obviously the worst performing tank destroyer. Then is the Object 268. Then we have the Grill 15, E4, Jagdpanzer, FV2-7 Badger, Ho-Reed Type 3, and the FV4005. The only tanks that are actually below the 183 and the 268 are the Kranvong, T125, and FV215B. We all know the FV215B was absolutely nerfed to the ground, and there's really not a reason to run it compared to other Tier 10 heavies. The E5 was also nerfed into the ground, same thing as the 215B. The Kron I really like, but it lost a lot of turret traverse, and because of that, it seems like a lot of the good players stopped using the vehicle. The 5A, as many of you knows, biggest struggle is that it has no heat penetration, and now the IS-7's even better because it got its PBR files. 121B is just kind of left behind when it comes to the other Tier 10 mediums, and the Progetto's gun is absolutely inaccurate, and because of that, it's very hard to work, especially when it comes to its auto-reloading aspect and poor DPM. I really wanted to show this graph because it clearly states where Tier 10 tank destroyers are sitting as a whole. None of these are premiums. All of these are just tech trees that you can grind, and they're doing way worse than any of the other top 20 tanks. If we scroll up and we take a look at the top 20 tanks performing on average win rate, here we go. Highest average win rate. There is one tank destroyer in the entire list of top 20 tanks. One. The Type 71's obviously in test, so that doesn't count. We got the Concept 1B, T100LT, T22 Medium, STB1, E50 Vickers, VK72, T96. We got the WZ121, VK90, 113, M6 Yo, and then the E3. And then they're all, again, FE4202, 60 TP, IS-7, M48. Literally, one tank destroyer makes it into the list of top 20 tanks by win rate. And this shows you that tank destroyers are not performing very well compared to their peers. It's not like the 60 TP or the FE4202, the IS-7 are premiums that are overpowered. These are tech tree vehicles. And it is a fact that vehicles like the IS-7 and even the Mouse, as you can see, is doing better than all the other tank destroyers, 12 of them to be in fact, in the game. 8 of the 12 were listed in the bottom 20 tanks. That's just sad.
Droodles may not just be good at tank destroyers. Maybe he's not as good of a player as he thinks he is on tank destroyers.
In Happy's video, he brought up the point that maybe I just have a simple skill issue in tank destroyers or my sample size is too small. So what I decided to do is play another 50 games in the tank. We're sitting at 167 battles now, 71.26%, with 3,368 games. And just to keep that sample size even truer, I barely platooned throughout any of those battles. Maybe 20 out of the 167 were in platoon, which I showcased on my live stream. If we were to take a look at one of the best players on the entire server, his Royal Fatness, he is also performing 68.18% in his Object 268 version 4 with 3,800 average damage. Now sure, it's only 22 battles, but you can still definitely see that his win rate is very close to mine, also accounting the average damage. And even if we want to take it a step further, we can take a look at top players by tank in the past 30 days, because obviously this tank was tested in a very overpowered state. So if we take a look at the Object 268 version 4 on the North American server, which is obviously the one I play on, for the last 30 days, the highest win rate is 82.86%. And if we take a look, I'm in number 18th for the highest win rate in the entire North American server. And not to mention that a lot of these players have only played around 30 to 40 battles in the tank. If they were surely to play 170, their stats might just even out, which is a true fact. If we were to not look at average win rate and we were to take a look at damage ratio, I'm number 2. If we were to take a look at maybe not damage ratio, but damage per battle, I'm number 5. I'm not doing bad whatsoever in the 268 version 4. And this isn't me tooting my own horn. I'm using statistical proof here from top players using this vehicle, showing that I'm doing just as well as other top players in the North American server. And if you want to take it even a step further, we can go over to the Grill 15, where currently with win rate, I am placed number 6. So again, I don't struggle to win in tier 10 tank destroyers. It's just not a problem with me. I don't know why that would be said. Even if we were to go look at WN8, I am literally number 3 when it comes to WN8 in the Object 268 version 4. So I do find in tank destroyers, and it's not just me that has been struggling to win in the Object 268 version 4, or any tier 10 tank destroyer at that. There are a couple that are very strong. The T110E3 has got super speed boost, it's got huge alpha, really good DPM. The E3 is a beast to fight, but even the E3, as we went over on Blitz analysis, is still doing worse than the M6 Yo, the WZ113, the VK90, 121, E6, VK72, Vickers Light, E50M. There are so many tanks doing better than it, and it's just one tank destroyer that makes it into the top 20 compared to all the others sitting in the bottom 20 tanks by average win rate. And if you want to take it even a step further, we can go from highest average win rate to highest average win rate by skill level. This is 65 percenters in tier 10, and the E4 is the number 1 performing tank destroyer. Would you like to take a guess why the E4 is the number 1 performing tank destroyer? Is it maybe that, oh, it has a turret? This is the only reason I find the E4 to get up this high, is down to the fact that it has a turret, and that makes it flexible enough to do frontline capabilities that don't make you rely on your teammates nearly as much. The next highest is the AMX Foch 155, that barely squeezes in past the VK90-01P, the WZ113, E6, 57 Heavy, 60 TP, 907 STB. The list goes on, and it's not even overpowered premiums that makes the top of the list. It's the IS-7, the E50M, the mouse.
Now, he says that they are team dependent. In what way would, for example, a mouse not be team dependent? For example, if a light tank is running around and capturing, capturing points, the mouse simply cannot get to him. This means the mouse is also team dependent.
Let's be real here. Would you win in any 1 versus 1 situation if you were in a tank destroyer against a T100 LT, let's say? No. All the LT has to do, if it's a somewhat competent player, is, if you're in a very slow tank destroyer, outspot you, which it will, and then drive behind you, and oh no, you have no turret. Even if you're in a more flexible tank destroyer like the E4, your turret still only turns 90 degrees to the right and 90 degrees to the left, making making you very easy bait for any light tank to get behind. Even if I give tank destroyers the benefit of the doubt and say you are in the most mobile, strongest frontally, and highest DPM, being the Object 263, you still lose to the T100 LT because it has two options: either get behind you or use its still superior mobility to drive away. It will outspot you, it can drive away, and then shoot you in the sides, keep driving away using its spotting mechanic. Or a Sheridan could just tap you once and then drive away. Light tanks will beat any other class in a 1 versus 1 situation, especially in Supremacy if they are smart, unless they're fighting against mediums. And I specifically remember saying earlier in my video that every class does better than tank destroyers. So if you brought up any medium to the table, it would have a pretty darn good time fighting that light tank and possibly even win. Way higher of a chance than any tank destroyer. In fact, I think any heavy tank would have a higher chance of winning than any tank destroyer, down to the fact that you can actually bounce shells, your sides are somewhat troll, and you have more hit points to work with and a fully traversable turret. Let's even take it further. You're in a mouse. You have 3,000 hit points, incredible armor, and a fully traversable turret. If you're on Yamato Harbor or Himmelsdorf, Falls Creek against a bunch of tier 10s, you know what you can do? You can literally drive full speed into the enemy, not caring, because you have enough hit points and enough armor everywhere to deal with enemy opponents. If you're in an Object 268 version 4, a T110E3, or a Badger, 3 of the most heavily armored tier 10 tank destroyers, there is no way any of you would be willing to drive straight forwards on Himmelsdorf, Falls Creek, or any map that has a lot of focusing right down the line like Yamato Harbor, because you would instantly die. You do not have a turret that can focus and angle, and you do not have effective armor on your sides whatsoever. Tank destroyers cannot get away with aggressive pushes like that. And let's say you're in that tank destroyer and you have a mouse next to you and that mouse is deciding not to push. You're stuck there because you're relying on that mouse to make the push so you can push with him. Tank destroyers rely on other tanks to do the job for them, and that is simply a fact. Even gotten started on the FE4005 or vehicles like the Grill 15 that solely rely on the fact that your teammates are spotting tanks for you. If they aren't, then you're basically useless. Like, there are some situations where you can frontline and try to do your best, but if your team doesn't know what they're doing in a 4005 or a Grill 15, you can basically kiss your win goodbye.
Similarly, if you're in a 1 versus 1 situation, in what way, shape, or form can, for example, a T62, for example, outplay a full HP IS-4? You know?
Happy, didn't you just prove yourself wrong by your earlier argument that a mouse can't deal with any light tank capturing bases in a Supremacy battle in a 1 versus 1? Isn't that literally the same exact argument that I could make for the 62A? Couldn't you just drive to bases, ignoring the IS-4 and out-capturing him? Because you're still more mobile than the IS-4, and if we're both full HP, I'm still going to outspot you, and even if I take 1 or 2 shells, I should be able to win on base capture. And even if it's an encounter battle and I can't win on base capture, I have a lot more DPM than that IS-4. I have a lot more situational spots I can work, judging that I have 7 degrees of gun depression compared to these 6. I have a really solid turret armor, and I have a gun that can permanently track a player that does use its repair kits. There are so many situations a T62A could beat a full health IS-4. It's not even comparable.
You know what I mean? Like a heavy tank versus a light tank or a medium tank in a 1 versus 1 scenario where the players have an equal skill base. The heavy tank will always win simply because it has more HP and has more alpha and more armor.
I don't even know what to say at this point. We just went over this with the 62A versus the IS-4, but literally against any medium tank, an IS-4 or really any heavy tank would have an extremely hard time of winning. Why is this? It's down to the fact that mediums have really good camo, really good mobility, and really solid DPM. Oh, and that little thing called spotting. Any medium in tier 10 will outspot every heavy tank, and that is a fact, which means that all you have to do is out-position your opponent in that heavy tank. It's pretty easy to do as well. Let's say you're playing Supremacy, which is what I only play on. If you're playing Supremacy, you drive into a base. you capture that base. Now you have forced that heavy tank to at one point in time either go into another base revealing his position to you, or go to that base to stop it from being capped. As soon as that happens, you now know where that heavy tank is, and you can positionally outmaneuver it, either go to another base, or do one even better, shoot it once and drive back in the cover, because you will always outspot it, especially if you know where the heavy tank is. Mobility always beats slowness, and even if you're in a faster heavy like a 5A, an IS-7, it does not matter because you are still not nearly as flexible. Your traverse speed is terrible compared to even some of the slowest medium tanks. I'm quite confident that an AMX-30B could beat an IS-7 just by capturing bases and outspotting it. Before I end off today's video, I have two things to say, one to Happy and one to everybody. Happy, I challenge you to pull out any heavy tank in your garage on your NA account, because I know you have one. I will play a medium tank, any medium tank I want to pick as well, and we will see if you can beat my medium tank. We can make it the best of 10, the best of 20 for all I care. I guarantee that I will have at least half of the wins, if not more, when we are playing in a 1 versus 1 engagement, and you are in a heavy and I am in a medium, with random maps on and supremacy checked on. For anybody in the comments section who is still going to argue that tank destroyers have the same amount of carrying potential and probability of winning in tier 10 with a skilled player under the wheel compared to any other tank class with a skilled player under the wheel, you are ignoring factual information. I have showed graphs, I have showed statistics, I have showed Blitz star stats, I have showed everything you need to know, and it's all factual to how tank destroyers are doing worse than every other class by far. 8 out of the 12 tank destroyers in tier 10 are performing in the bottom 20 of tanks in the game, and only 2 make it into actually performing even decent, still below a bunch of other tier 10s, not even being overpowered collectors. So I wanted to end today's video there. If you disagree with the factual information I've showed in this video, you are simply being ignorant and ignoring facts. I know it may come off as toxic, but it's the truth.